For joining us. This meeting of General Governance Committee is being held in the hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participants by members of public staff and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants to please use their mics at all times for the benefits of those participating in council chambers and joining us remotely. Now I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land at which we are gathered is situated on the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations, signatory of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaty of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous people. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Do we have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I need a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting. Councillor Lee, can we vote? Thank you. I need a motion to move the closed session of the meeting of June 17th. Councillor Tyler Morin, can we vote, please? Thank you. The consent agenda, we have for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 17, and 18 pulled. I need a mover to, thank you. Mayor Collier? Sure. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 17, and 18 have been pulled. Can I put back in if I'm the only one and 2? You're not the only one, but yeah, it's in, yeah. So Mayor Collier, move the rest of the agenda. Please vote. Thank you. Thank you. For 1, I have Councillor Henry first. Oh, then I have Councillor Bauer. Is she on? Yeah, Councillor Bauer.
Can you hear me?
You're very quiet.
Okay, hold on. Is this any better?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon. I did have a question regarding the number. It's over 70%. So I wanted to know, is there a process or what's the process in place? Do we know if these claims are there multiple falls in the same location? Or what is the town doing? What are we doing to ensure that we're not having multiple falls at the same spot?
Director Meredith?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, we do have an ongoing or an annual inspection process as it relates to sidewalks, parking lots, and our trail system. And through that process, we identify any deficiencies with respect to sidewalk trip hazards. Regarding claims that we've received, I'm not aware, and we did a double check earlier today, that there's multiple claims for the same location. Typically what happens, we're governed by municipal maintenance standards as it relates to the size of trip hazard that does exist. If they are a certain height, they would get either ground down or repaired immediately. If not, they may be spray painted, and we do have a contracted service each year that does deal with the replacement and repairs to our sidewalks. So we are governed by legislation and we do monitor it on an ongoing basis. So there should be enough built into the process that we would not have repeat claims.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. That was
Thank-
my only question, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Next is for 2. I have Councillor Henry.
Madam
Sorry.
Chair.
Thank you. I need to move. Mayor Collier moved it. Sorry, apologize. Can we vote? Thank you. For 2 is Councillor Henry. You're good? Excellent. For 3, I have regional, oh yeah, my gosh. Thank you. He did it again. And vote, thank you. Thank you. For 3, I have Regional Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions. I guess we'll start with the overall one. So it looks like we increased our non-resident fees to about 5%. Wasn't it, Council, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we suggest it was like, should be a 10% increase, or did we ultimately decide on 5?
Through the chair to Councillor Lee, I believe it was 5% that we discussed last year.
Okay.
So we kept that going forward again for this coming year.
And then I guess this would go to both the directors of rec and then corporate services, as they have the most non-resident fees, so to speak. Can you tell me, we'll start with Director Cooper, what are the total non-residents that utilize town corporate services, and what revenue do we get from those?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, we actually in corporate services don't have a lot of non-resident fees. The major one would be for Commissioner of Oaths. And frankly, we're talking pretty small potatoes from a dollars and cents perspective compared to the differential between non-resident revenue versus resident revenue that we would see in recreation. But if you just give me a moment here, I can pull up those numbers. So if we look at the last complete year of data that we have for Commissioner of Oaths, for Commissioner of Oaths, we would have done 336 for residents for a total of around $9,000 in revenue, and for non-residents, 48 instances of that for a total of about $1,500 in revenue.
In your estimation, if we were hypothetically to increase the charges to 10%, just as a thought experiment, do you think that would prohibitively drop our non-resident adoption of those fees?
Hard to say in this case. One thing I'll say is when we look at the front counter services, things like what we charge for marriage ceremonies and Commissioner of Oaths, we actually do look very carefully at what our neighboring municipalities charge, and if the differential becomes too big, it's pretty easy for someone to just drive to Pickering or Whitby to get that same service. So we do try and stay within the realm of what we see in our neighboring municipalities, but would an additional 10% drive people to get in their car and go to another municipality? Perhaps, I'm not sure.
Okay. You know what? Let's put a pin in that. We'll check next year, because I'm very curious to see what the adoption rate is. So to Director Vita then, same question. What are the number of non-residents, and I imagine you'd have more, using our recreation services, and what's the revenue we get from them?
Sure. So the areas of facility booking and program registration are the areas in which we subcategorize our users as resident versus non-resident. From a facility booking perspective, so just taking a look at 2024 thus far, we've had 1,933 total rental permits. Of those, 70%, 1,344 were resident permits, 589 or 30% were non-resident permits. From a program perspective, thus far in 2024, we have 24,433 total registrations. That includes all programs and aquatics. So 95%, 23,095 are resident registrations, with approximately 5%, 1,338 as non-resident registrations.
So between bookings and rec programs, we'll say about 1,500 individuals or bookings that were non-residents.
Yeah, that's correct. A little closer to 2,000, but in and around that range, yeah.
One of the common complaints we get as a municipality is that, oh, our swimming programs are too competitive. We can't get into our swimming programs. And it's disheartening to hear that even, I think you gave the number, about 500 of non-residents are kind of taking, we'll call it spots, that our residents may want to take advantage of. So I think this is twofold. We can absolutely get the benefit of getting more money from these people, as well as, you know, making it more fair and advantageous for our residents to get in there. But I think Director Valentin will tell me this is the first year we're raising to the 5% mark, so we should maybe wait and see. So I'm just going to leave that thought out there to the rest of council. I hope next year when we hear these numbers, there is an opportunity to make it more fair. I know, Director Vita, we do have a break between the registration dates, but beyond that, I think that we should be, you know, catering Ajax programming to Ajax residents first and foremost. So just still with Director Vita, there's brochure advertising rates. What is the uptake of this brochure? Do people still actually use this brochure, the physical one, as opposed to going digitally?
Yes.
And are we selling out all the ad space there?
Sure. So currently, we're not producing a printed recreation guide. The only printed recreation guide is our 55 plus, which has a very, very small production rate of 3,000. It's not conducive to collecting ads. We're about to embark on the RFP for our digital recreation guide. We've left the fee for advertising for the guide in there because we expect that we will be able to realize some revenue from advertisements from the digital guide. Whether we've got to adjust that rate a little higher or lower, not sure. The digital guide is a bit of new territory for us. So once we complete the RFP process for that project, we'll be in a better position to determine what our advertising rates would be.
Okay. And then, so I noticed that Quaker and Rotary, they have a 6-hour minimum rental. Why do we book it out for 6 hours? Why not 4 hours? And then we could double it up.
Sure. So with respect to the timing of the 6 hours, the 6-hour rentals would still allow us to rent for 2 6-hour periods on a busy Saturday or Sunday. We've made that change to be reflective of the hours that we're actually seeing the pavilions are in use. We certainly see some challenges in the pavilions based on the timing that most rentals want to take them, where it then prevents us from renting before or after, and also poses some challenges in terms of staff getting from multiple locations around the lakefront when we have multiple bookings. So we expect the change to the 6-hour rental to allow us to more effectively and efficiently run our staff and likely realize higher revenue with our rentals there.
Okay, that's a great answer, so appreciate that. Canada Day celebrations, there is a lot of fees for food vendors. What if they're a craft vendor? What if they're a real estate agent? How much do they pay for that?
So all of our vendors are coming in at that, sorry, one second. Just
Is it,
moving some notes
a
here.
uniform rate for all of them?
Yeah, so for our non-food craft vendors, they're all at the $234 rate for an event such as Canada Day. However, the real estate agent that we had this past year was a supporting sponsor, and we received $1,500 from that category of sponsorship.
So our events, they're award-winning, literally, and our events team is top-notch. Does the rec department not see an opportunity to bring up the price a bit, to kind of make more money, or at least be more revenue neutral for our signature events like Pumpkinville and Canada Day?
Yeah, this is a great comment. This is something that I thought the same lines along as well. Staff did a deep dive into our comparative rates this past year. We ended up being on the high side for a lot of our fees, including Canada Day, which was consistent with a lot of the feedback that we've received from our vendors. So based on that review and based on the adjustments we've made thus far, we feel that our rates are appropriate.
Okay. So personal training. I'm an avid user of the Ajax gyms. How many residents are actually taking advantage of our personal training?
So far in 2024, we've had 80 individual customers and we've sold approximately 394 hours of personal training.
Do we find that's in line with other municipalities? Are we on the shorter side? Should we be reducing our rates? Should we increase? Like, again, like I'm all, as everyone can kind of tell, I'm trying to, squeeze blood from the stone at this point. But I just think, like, I don't know, is there an opportunity to lower that rate and get more uptick from it, for example?
It's something we can take a look at. In our comparisons to other municipalities, we found that our rates for personal training is on par. Not sure that that's necessarily the most popular service that people are coming to the municipal gym to look at. However, we do have some interest. We do well. And typically the way the personal training shifts work, these are booked in addition to staff's regular fitness and health center hours. So it's a nice bit of a bonus as well for some of our part-time staff to be able to perform
Fair
these
enough. Yep.
as well.
Okay. There was a line item, first time I'm seeing it, is corporate and group memberships. And am I led to believe then like a corporation can give X amount of dollars and they kind of get a discounted rate towards the town services?
That's correct. We have a rate specifically designed for corporate or group memberships. We have approximately 10 businesses within Ajax currently taking advantage of these rates. That's definitely grown since last year. Staff have taken an active approach to engage new businesses, so we expect that will continue to be an area that we'll be able to see some growth in.
How much do they pay to be part of that corporate membership?
It depends on the number of individuals, I believe. I'd have to get back to you for specifics on that.
If you could email council, just the total, all the companies that are currently involved with that, as well as the range and pricing would be very helpful. So thank you very much. I just have, thank you, Chair, for your allowance, by the way, too. Just some questions for the chief. Our tower rentals, we had mentioned that it's incredibly competitive to rent out. So why don't we just reduce the costs on that then and try and get more volume as opposed to the upper tier?
Thank you for your question, Regional Councillor Lee. It's important to look at the whole picture. Lowering the fee may not attract more customers based on, the first thing is we build into our fees the cost of running the props, the cost of the nitrogen to pressurize the synthetic smoke, the cost of the smoke itself, maintenance of the equipment, the facility, as well as staff costs for running the facility. Now, it's also important to sort of look at what's happening with community colleges. So first off, Durham College, who used to be a customer of ours, switched over to Oshawa Fire once they opened up their facility because it was closer. Seneca College generally uses, in York Region, Richmond Hill, and Centennial College, who rents out our facility for the live fire training, does their own internal fire ground training there because it was cheaper for them to go out and procure the props than to continually rent our facility. Now, when we look across the region of what's happening, and I think a lot of this is being driven by staffing costs as well as certification that's on the horizon, Whitby Fire has a live fire training center that's under construction and is due to be completed at the end of this year. Clarington just announced that they're receiving funding from the province to build their own live fire training center as well. And Pickering is working on expropriating land for another fire hall and a live fire training facility as well for themselves. The Northern Durham fire departments, they utilize the Ontario Fire Marshal's live fire trailer that they get free of charge and comes right to their site. So that's where they've been directing their resources. Whereas OPG has their own live fire facility where they send their personnel to in Wesleyville.
Okay, and so we must have a break-even cost. Like there must be a number where you have determined like at the very least we'll break even, and then if we add 15% of that, that's still kind of net gain for us. Have we considered dropping it to that point in lieu of all this competition? Just so we get use out of it. I'm sure our firefighters are using our own tower, which obviously makes sense. But again, just so we don't have, so when something's being used, a town house is being used and generating income, would it not make sense to kind of figure out what that point is?
Thank you, Councillor Lee. In relation to that, we do look at our costs versus the costs of rental on an ongoing basis. It's something we're going to be keeping a very close eye with, especially with Whitby opening their facility. We want to make sure that our tower is basically, we're getting good bang for our buck, per se, when it comes to that stuff. So when we look at our own internal training, and I think this is what's driving a lot of the towers to be built in the region, when fire departments have to send out their personnel to another region, they backfill customarily through overtime. So not only are those departments having to pay the cost of the rental of the other neighbor's facility, but the cost of backfilling their staffing. So that's what's driving a lot of their own facilities to be purchased.
Okay, Chair, thank you very much for all the allowance. I'm sure I'll be asking a lot of these similar questions next year at this time, but I just think there is an opportunity for us, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Apologies. So I have one question, and this goes to Director Vita. When we as a corporation are renting out the ARC facility in particular, Hall C, so like the entire banquet facility. And I know the up range of that cost could be close to around 3,500. Is our staff expressing to whomever it is that wants to rent the facility, if they're asking for something a little bit extra, and I know this will be covered somewhat in the fairgrounds conversation, but currently, if somebody wanted to rent that area and they needed to use the parking lot to bring in a stage and have something there, or a tenting area outside, something like that, are we, are staff offering that service as well? Like, yes, you can rent out the full inside area, but you can also incorporate, if you have part of it that has tents for a fairground kind of thing, you can also have that as part of the rental, or would that be an extra cost? Is it a service we're offering?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Henry, I wouldn't say that is a service that we're offering, nor do we have fees associated specifically with it. I would say that every rental and usage in that hall is unique and comes with a unique set of requests and expectations. Where we can work within the established guidelines and processes that we have, we certainly try to work with groups, and yes, that includes occasionally blocking off a parking lot to get equipment in or unloading and things like that. But in general, I would say no, we're not facilitating tents within the parking lots and things like that at this point in time.
Is that something that we could consider? So for instance, there's certain culture events that I've attended at that facility where we leave the facility and come back in a line that's, it might be a religious or cultural event where there's a parade ceremony into the hall. And so the parking lot itself is used as part of the permitted space. And therefore there wasn't maybe vehicles parked in a certain area of parking lot C to accommodate that. And I'm just thinking, if we had a vendor that had more, they couldn't fit everything they needed into the enclosed indoor space, and they needed to bring tents into part of that parking lot, could we not accommodate that? Is that something we can look at for the future?
Whether that's something we can look at for the future, I think so. Again, it's not the level of service we have right now. Again, we would try to work with any individual permit holder or user within that space. And I think we would take a request like that and evaluate it based on the merits, based on what's going on within the building at the time. I would be hesitant to put processes in place that allowed a user to book and block off the parking lot, as that parking lot sees very, very heavy traffic, particularly on the weekends and our busy periods, and I expect we'll be even busier with the fairgrounds coming online later.
And if I might suggest that, we know the fairgrounds are coming on, so probably the entire policy around rental in Audley is probably going to have to be relooked at that point. So perhaps that's a conversation that could happen either at that point or offline in a different discussion.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring it up in this format because we're looking at just plant that seed. It's something that I've had, and I agree with you, I'll leave it for now, but I just wanted to say it's something that I have had come to me from the community for different events. So if we can have that conversation in the future, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please advise if this is a bit off topic. Through to you, Mr. Vida. I don't get a lot of, lack of a better word, complaints or comments about user fees, the actual amount people pay, but there are lots of comments about availability, which again, the report's entitled user fees and charges. But is it linked when I have moms calling me about preschool swimming, things like that, and not having availability, like the minute it opens? And I don't even know, I'm just quoting, and people are frustrated.
Sure. I would say that some of our programs are more popular than others, and some do get filled fairly quickly. Each seasonal session, our staff evaluate where our programs are at in terms of in terms of participation we've seen the previous session. We'll adjust staff and adjust program volumes where we're able to, and have staff in order to accommodate where the interest goes. So in terms of the staff we allocate per program based on the interest, that's a sort of an ongoing changing thing that is established based on, you know, the type of interest we're seeing for a particular program.
Okay, it's just something, again, as my colleague said, I wanted to bring to your attention while we're on the topic. But I'm not really getting any complaints about user fees, just about when these programs are available, room to get their kids in, that kind of thing. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I miss the magazine, just saying. If nobody cares about that, I know, but I miss it. I think, I'm not sure if it was this year or it started last year, was through the summertime, we had teens were able to attend for free with a paying adult. Is that correct? Was that this year we started it or last year?
Through you, that's correct. We started that the summer 2024.
Yeah, how did that go? Did we have a lot of uptake on that? Because that's very similar to a Good Life, and they offer the same kind of service.
I don't have the specific participation numbers with me. We can take a look into that. I do know that it was utilized fairly well. One of the topics we were most pleased with was a lack of feedback and negative feedback we received from other members using the facilities. Those that were using them seemed to be quite respectful of the spaces, so it looked to be a positive experience for us.
And something we would continue?
Yeah, that would be our plan.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Lee, would you like to move this? And we're open for a vote. Thank you. Okay, 4-4, have Councillor Henry had pulled first.
Thank you. So I have some questions, and I want to express some concerns related to the new Audley Fairgrounds. I do want to reference in my questions the strategic plan, establishing and cultivating cultural group connections, festivals, and special event enhancements, and how the fairgrounds can bring key cultural group events to Ajax, and how this fairgrounds will be able to complete our strategic plan. With that being said, one of my concerns with the renovation relates to be able to accommodate a larger community group events. And I'm just going to reference this particular one, BMK, as they had in Whitby this past week, the weekend before this. So I just wanted to touch base. We did have a meeting about this, but I did want to ask some questions, because in the meeting that Director Meredith was in, he did help alleviate some of Ward 2 concerns that were adjacent to this area, and stating that it wouldn't be every weekend that this new fairgrounds would be used. We wouldn't have folks there every weekend. It'd be some key events. And I was wondering, Director, if you could speak more to that.
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, a couple of things with respect to the improvements that are taking place at Audley Recreation Centre. First of all, I think we wanted to articulate and speak to the fact that we view these as sort of park improvements that will day in and day out benefit the local residents in the vicinity of the Audley Recreation Centre. The area, we're obviously improving sort of the turf conditions, we're improving the trail network within that system that existing residents are going to be able to benefit on a day in and day out basis. Kick a ball, go and have a picnic. For the majority of the time, there will be that benefit provided. Having said that, there are also provisions being made that will allow these lands to be used for larger scale community events. Those could be both town-based events as well as events that we're coordinating at a corporate level in terms of meeting the needs of the greater community. So you are correct in that the discussions that we've had, we're not necessarily looking to have large-scale events of X number of thousands of people sort of on a week-in, week-out basis. They will be, and something that the town has the ability to control and manage. So there will be a process. We'll obviously work with our Recreation and Culture Group as it relates to sort of town events that we wish to host on these lands on an annual basis. We'll also work with other community interests who wish to host large events at this location, and they could come in a variety of sizes in terms of population. So there will be a variety, and there will be an internal team that looks at and evaluates those requests as they come forward. I will say, as part of it, we are also doing a parking management plan as it relates to this site. So for those events, while there is limited parking on site, we'll also be looking at other means of accessing it, whether it be through public transit, through shuttle services, through active transportation. There's a number of variables that we're currently looking at. And there will be a parking traffic management plan that will come before council once it's complete. So I would expect that closer towards the end of this year that we would have that in place.
So what will we say to groups? Because when this funding first came before this council, and we were told, you know, we needed to create this fairgrounds because we won't have use for Ajax Downs forever. We know the land adjacent to it that is also owned by the Peacock family is being developed, which is their right. They own the land. They're allowed to do this. Therefore, we have to look for other areas within the city to host events. So I'm noticing, for instance, and I've heard this from Durham Caribbean Festival in the past, I'm hearing it from this BMK festival, one of the biggest costs that a big festival event would have, one of the major biggest costs is staging. And that's anywhere from from 20,000 to 36,000 for the staging and lights. So if we're not allowing, if we're only allowing, and I understand the reasoning behind it, I'm not criticizing, but I just want to ask, if we're only allowing so many events at this new fairgrounds per year, a majority of them being town events, and we're, if the event we feel is too big, too loud for the area, and we have to try to help find another area for the event to exist within the town, now we've pushed off the cost of staging, because the fairgrounds will have a stage. So now we've pushed off that cost of staging onto the event organizer, which, in the end makes their event all that more expensive. How do we respond to that with events that won't be allowed to be there? Have we thought about that?
I would suggest the larger scale events of that magnitude, we would direct towards the Audley Recreation Center. At this point, we'll work with Recreation and our sort of corporate team as it relates to town-related events, but any large-scale event that we'd be looking to partner or have led by a community group or a community interest would be oriented towards the Audley Recreation Center. That's one of the reasons and the rationale for why we're creating this space, is because in the past, where there's been requests, whether it's been along the waterfront, whether it's been at Greenwood, there's an inability from an infrastructure standpoint to accommodate those locations. So, and I'll use RibFest as an example. We've had the requests in the past, and we've been unable to accommodate them because of the size and the impacts that it would have. So we're designing this space to allow for such uses. Similarly to the Caribbean Festival, where a number of years ago they were accommodated up at Greenwood. There is limited capacity in terms of the lands that can be, or the population that can be accommodated at that location, whereas now the Audley Recreation Center would have greater capacity to accommodate those types of festivals and events. So our focus is to create and would have 2 stages, performing stages at the Audley Recreation Center that would be able to facilitate and accommodate. We're not looking to have stages to the extent that you've referenced at other locations in the town of Ajax.
Okay, thank you. And with regards to the project cost and the taxpayers to maintain the fairgrounds after it's done, so we know that we're getting the half funding from the federal government, which is around $4 million for this project. The cost to maintain this afterwards, and this is with regards to security, maintenance, cleanup after events, that cost will fall on the taxpayer, correct?
Not necessarily. The costs associated with the events as it relates to event cleanup, security, will all form part of a event package or an event fee that organizers would have to pay. So over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be working internally to develop that package, identify what those costs are, so that when individuals come to the town looking to program those events, that they'll understand costs associated with cleanup, costs associated with security, portable washrooms and hand washing stations, those other support services that are required for shuttle services are all examples of costs that will be incurred that will be passed on to the event organizer unless it's a town event.
Oh, so even for the shuttle services itself will be passed on to the event organizer for the larger events?
Correct.
So, oh, that's good news, good news. So, you know what, that took off like 5 questions right there. Yeah, that was one of the major concerns. That's all my questions for now. I might have further questions, but I'll leave that for now, because I think there's someone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. And I'm troubled by some of the answers, because I want to see this thing used as much as possible. I'd like to get Def Leppard out of here. I don't, have big concerts, have whatever. I have questions on the budget that I was going to ask Mr. Glue, who is here in my meeting, I think that's later on this week. But I'll ask them now, because there's $700,000 in the budget for a secondary stage. I envision this as having, and I don't know if you've ever been to Delcree Park in Peterborough or Rock the Park in London or any of those events, but large commercial type stages like what we've had at the waterfront when we used to do Canada Day down there. Is that not the case? Because if it's not, I'm probably going to ask to defer this and revisit it. I don't want a showmobile. That's not the vision that I have for this. This is bigger.
So the referenced item, that the stage that you've referenced, is the largest stage line product that is available, that has been budgeted for this location. I think it may be better to have that separate discussion sort of outside of this meeting so that you can satisfy yourself with respect to the piece of equipment that is being proposed to be acquired as part of this.
Okay, I'm just reading here. The site will include 2 individual concrete pads and provide a foundation for 2 portable stages. Again, I had not envisioned portable. I had envisioned one to be pretty much fixed and almost permanent, or at least something that gets put up in the spring and taken down in the fall, and then potentially one portable on the west side facing away. But you're saying that is not the intent of this right now, or the plan for this right now?
That is the intent, that we have our existing portable stage, which is the showmobile, and then we have the second one that is separate from this project that will be considered in the 2025 budget, which is a larger, more permanent stage that would not be moved around from location to location. It would be permanent at that location, but it has the ability to be moved or transported, but it is not the intent that it would be in a permanent location.
Okay, I see CAO Baker wanted to comment. Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, one of the things that was discussed in this meeting was that one of the problems with what we're looking at right now is the location of the more permanent stage that you're talking about, Mayor Collier, which is, right now we're visioning it to go where the future next phase of ARC will be. So it's better that we get something that we can move, take down, reposition later. But I agree with Dave. I think he needs to show you exactly what he's talking about for this larger stage. It's not a showmobile.
Okay.
Is it possible that we're getting lost on portable? Like, it's not a small, portable doesn't mean small, it means,
It says 2 portable stages in the report.
yeah, I think, because when you think portable, you think of it being smaller.
Yeah, it's a totally separate requirement to move this other stage around. It is more of a permanent stage, although in theory it's portable. The one will be permanent, the other has more mobility opportunities.
Okay. I'll move on. We'll follow up with that offline. I want to talk about what Councillor Henry brought up as far as limiting of use, because again, I'm not looking to spend money on this and do this to have a bunch of limitations that's going to be used just a handful of times per year. I want this to be something that's permitted and used as much as possible. That is the vision. It's been in our strat plan the last 2 terms of council. Who would like to answer that, Mr. Baker?
Director Meredith can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding that his comment was more related to the reality of how many events actually may happen there. I don't think that we will be restricting how many events are there.
No, we would have sort of an intake period that we would be looking to host the events sort of in the winter, so that we know what that schedule would look like. Right now, based on conversations we've had, understanding sort of what the interest is, we would see it being used on a frequent basis, but I don't know to what extent that it would be permitted. We know from a town standpoint there's a number of events that we would host, but we don't know the exact numbers in terms of what the community interest would be. We do need to sort of work out sort of logistics as well with respect to the Audley Recreation Center. There is the occasion where there are significant ball tournaments that are happening there as well, so there is some pre-planning and coordination we need to do from an operational perspective as well.
Through you, Madam Chair. I think to your question, Mayor Collier, the key here is that we are not looking to restrict events. We will try and accommodate as many events as we can based on all of our operational needs and availability.
Okay. Has there been any discussion with Durham Regional Transit as far as servicing the site during events? You talked about shuttle service. I imagine there'd be a lay-by on Audley or some sort of facility to turn into Audley Rec Center. Have those conversations happened? Are they able to service the site during events?
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, those are conversations that are happening now. We have had a meeting in, I guess it was the end of July. Durham Transit was in attendance, and we've spoken to them about an enhanced service, especially during those special events that we have. So I do think there is further conversations to be had with Durham Transit in terms of that increased service level.
Okay, and finally, this council approved a naming rights policy, I believe, a few years ago. I fully intended ongoing expenses I had hoped would be supported through a naming rights of this facility. Has anything been done to that or with regards to that yet? Are there any prospects?
Thank you. Through the chair to Mayor Collier. Yes, so the staff will be launching a full court press on soliciting proposals facilities sometime in the next couple of weeks. A note will go to council with the details of those, and of course, any proposal that is received that is to be viewed as legitimate and likely by the town will be brought forward through the policy process, which ultimately will be brought in front of council. But it is staff's goal to launch a large sort of campaign in the next few weeks, specifically highlighting the fairgrounds.
Okay. All right, those are my questions, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move this at the appropriate time, and I'll get that information, and if changes need to be made, I can bring those at council. Thank you.
Can I just ask Director Meredith, this will be coming back to council again, correctly? Correct? This is not like the only time we're ever going to see this.
Well, this report is an information report. The contract has been awarded, the work is underway. So there's nothing coming back as it relates to the construction of the works that are taking place at the Audley Rec Center. The only thing that would be coming back is the parking management plan.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Councillor Bauer. I think you need to ask again, sorry. There you go.
There. Hi. Yeah, thank you, Chair. So very interesting conversation, exciting project for sure. So in the report, it says the new fairgrounds will hold up to 25,000 people. So just what is our second largest outdoor venue and how many people does that hold?
Two other venues that we've hosted special events close to this size before have historically been the Waterfront and Greenwood. But they would not be, well, the Waterfront does have a large geographic area that could obviously accommodate sort of that number of people. But outside of that, Greenwood is more restricted in size and is more in the 10,000 person range.
Okay. And Pat Bailey is just a couple thousand? Or how much is that?
I don't know if it would be a couple thousand, it wouldn't be more than that.
If I can just jump in there, just based on the experiences that we've held there, 1,500 to 2,000, you're probably getting close to your max at comfortably anyways at Pat Bailey.
Okay. So I just wanted to know that there are a few choices that will be up for consideration for groups, depending on, of course, the number. But that was my own question, my own curiosity. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to get too bogged down in the design or about this staging, but I've obviously got some insight. So I have some questions. So there's two stages in the report. The one stage would be part of the first phase, and the second more formidable stage, permanent stage, bigger stage would be part of stage 2. Is that correct? Or is it, sorry.
One stage we currently own and operate. The second is for consideration in the 2025 capital budget, and if approved, would be in place when the fairgrounds open.
Excellent. And the persons that would be dealing with the insight and the expertise on that staging, would it be the construction company or the contract award detail? Would it be the designer? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me right there. Oh yeah, so the Landscape Planning Limited, would that be the body would be dealing with the staging?
No, the staging would be done sort of by our staff and we'd be coordinating with Recreation Services who have the AV expertise that would be able to help support that as well.
So I would like to ask to be part of that discussion, at some point, because basically when you look at staging, you look at three things. You look at the floor, the roof, and the power. So the power is definitely here. Again, this is sort of details. We don't have to do it in this meeting, but the roof is all about rigging. So if you have a stage that's 60 feet wide or 40 feet wide, and you bring in any kind of significant event, it's all about rigging because everything flies. Most stuff is off the floor. If you bring in line array systems, lighting usually goes down and motors just bring it all the way up. So if that stuff's not in place when you do it, which I think based on the mayor's comments and vision, I think it should be. I guess those aren't questions, but I would just like to be part of the process. And again, we can maybe talk about this offline.
Just to respond, the lighting and all of the audio is integrated as part of the stage when it's acquired. It's an integrated system.
So there would be permanent production on that stage, like speakers, monitors, front of house lighting.
Generator.
That would be there 365 days a year?
Correct.
CEO Baker.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it would be a great idea if, when we're going through that process, for us to sit down with you and have a look at
Maybe we can leave it at that point. Because an outdoor permanent installation. Okay. Just picturing 30 below in February. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So I did want to ask that myself and Councillor Lee, I realize it's not coming back to council, and sorry, Councillor Lee, I am speaking for you, because we are the ward representatives, that if there's any changes or anything going out to the public that we be informed of it. I wasn't informed the fence was up. I didn't know until residents came to me and said, why is this fence up? And what are you talking about? So I wasn't aware of that. Just so that we can head off any, type of correspondence that comes our way. But with regards to the parking, and I realize we're still waiting for the parking plan and transportation and what's going to come for that area, and you're still in the planning stages. And the mayor brought up a good point about Durham Regional Transit and how that will play a part in this. I do want to bring up the thought with the area residents and any inconvenience that would come their way with regards to on-street parking and how we're going to look at that. So if that is something that we can discuss along the way, I would appreciate to be included in those conversations, because I'm going to be, myself and Councillor Lee will be the ones getting the majority of the correspondence back on that issue. So please keep that in mind moving forward. And thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Collier moved this. We can, if there's no other questions, we can vote. Thank you. 4.5, Uniformed Security Guard Services. I have Councillor Lee. Do you want to? Oh, there you go.
So the uniformed services right now, it's the ones we've previously contracted. These are the ones that also deal with our homelessness population. Is that the same service, correct?
That's correct.
Are there any, so, excuse me, the report mentions we had tried other vendors before. I guess like, you know, Mayor Carter at the region used to talk about how Oshawa was hiring top tier security personnel to patrol the streets of Oshawa. They had received social services training. I'm pretty sure we use the same vendor, do we not? As Oshawa?
I'm not 100% certain if we use the same vendor as Oshawa or not.
I guess as far as our contract with this security is concerned, is there a provision to ensure that we have like security guards who also have like social services training and how to deal with overdoses, who to report to? That level of service is included with this contract. I just don't want people put, you know, sorry to interrupt, but I think I speak for most residents. We don't just want rent-a-cops just patrolling our streets as pseudo-cops. So I want people who will be able to actually help the population that needs help and direct them to the appropriate services.
So part of the specifications when we put forward the contract with the vendor is they do have to have diversity and inclusion training modules for all of their staff, mental health training, and then any point of conflict type of training so that they can de-escalate situations. So there's very specific modules that all officers are required to have, and Paragon has that as part of their corporate program to ensure that all their officers are trained in such a way.
You had me until you said the word module. Is this like an IT thing that they can just kind of click through for 10 minutes? And
No, there's a series of sort of training components that as security guards are onboarded and then their annual training, that they have specific areas that, like we do here with the town of Ajax and any large employer, that it's ongoing training that they ensure their new staff as well as their current staff are continuing to stay current in that training as well.
do we ever have a mystery shopper type component where we kind of test our services for security? Someone pretends to be transient or, you know, I'm not volunteering, Mayor, but I'm just wondering, like, is there a component where we actually kind of put this to the test, so to speak?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I guess,
I have Ms. Cruciano on the line here. She wants to say something. Is that okay?
thank you, please.
Cass, are you there? There you go.
Thank you. Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee. Yes, just to reiterate some of the points that Director Meredith made, our staff and strategic initiatives work very closely with security and obviously the unsheltered community and the service providers there. We really focus on having those positive interactions, and our staff monitor. Any time that there are interactions, we do generally, staff are involved. We're aware of those interactions. To my knowledge, at this point, we don't have any negative interactions that have been brought to our attention. It's specifically in terms of the unsheltered community. I will also say that these folks I believe are a different security provider than what Oshawa uses. I do know Oshawa security providers are on an additional level where they actually travel with the City of Oshawa bylaw officers to different calls and have more, I guess, an added layer of security level that allows them to detain folks that are unruly until DRPS arrives. Our focus at this point has been to work as closely with security for de-escalation purposes, awareness purposes, education purposes, and only use escalation with DRPS as totally needed. But point taken, and I think that the training opportunities and continuing our relationship with security as it relates to the unsheltered community is something that's high on our priority list, and we're happy to take your feedback here today about ensuring that folks are treated with respect and dignity when they're interacting with town or contractors of the town.
Okay, I really appreciate that, Ms. Cruciano and Mr. Meredith. I think ultimately this is one of our most vulnerable populations, as we all know, but I think they would feel very hard for any sort of recourse should they have a deliberately bad or negligent experience. So I'm glad there are safeguards in place, and Chair, I'll move this at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. My question is going to go to Robin Williams, Corporate Security Specialist. Is Robin here? Thank you. So Robin and I had the pleasure of an email exchange prior to. She knows the question that I'll be asking today, but not all questions that come from, residents need to come to this format, but I think this one does. So this is something I received from a resident. So ran into a previous student in the store, and she expressed major concerns regarding increase in the number of bylaw officers, making her feel unsafe. She sees bylaw officers as police, and she noted 3 in Rotary Park late evening. My response was, were they bylaw officers? Because we also have the town security. And she said probably security, still seen as authority to racialized persons. So the reason that I bring this forward is because this is a sole source contract. We've worked with this company. My understanding is, from all feedback, they've been great. But I would like to ask Ms. Williams to speak to this, if she could, please.
Sure, my pleasure. Through the chair to Councillor Henry. So this kind of touches on Councillor Lee's question as well. So I did pull the training manual that Paragon goes through, and they do have extensive training in human rights and diversity. And it is not just like an online module they have to click through. It's a 40-hour concentrated training module that they have to go through, that they have to pass before they'll be given their security license. So in addition to that, so their training includes very in-depth modules, like I said, on diversity and inclusion, mental health, safety, crisis intervention, which is designed to generally prepare the team to handle a wide range of situations with care and professionalism. So their diversity inclusion training helps staff understand and address biases. It creates a welcoming environment and makes sure everyone in our community feels respected. So the mental health and safety training that they do go through, it equips them to recognize and respond to mental health issues effectively, while the crisis intervention training that they get gives them the tools to calmly handle these situations and de-escalate conflicts. So on top of that, if you guys are aware, seeing our security guards out there, the team itself is very diversified, and the members of our security team range in backgrounds and cultures. So this diversity does help them to relate and understand the different perspectives within our community, and it makes their approach and interaction more effective and empathetic. Just also on a side note, our guards that are at each facility, they get to know our population very well. I get regular feedback from the guards. They are on a first name basis with most of them. And as Cassandra said, we do work very closely with CAO's office and bylaw and DRPS to make sure that all supports and resources are allotted to help anyone who's in distress or in need.
Excellent, thank you. And just quickly to speak to the need for added security within the waterfront area, our crown jewel of Ajax, and, the necessity of that in the summer months, if you wouldn't mind.
So bylaw takes control of a lot of the enforcement down at the waterfronts. They have dedicated bylaw officers. So I know Derek is here if you want extra expertise from the bylaw side. So we do have regular waterfront patrols from Paragon Security to augment bylaw's presence down there at Rotary Park. We did see an increase in incidents down at the waterfront. So we already have kind of planned, learned things that have come up this summer to implement for next summer. And we are looking to increase mobile patrols as well for the next budgeted year.
And of course, with increased reports of campfires in the area and the treed shoreline and our crown jewel, being our crown jewel, the necessity for that little bit of extra security in that area.
Yeah, so I've been meeting with operations staff, and we've even looked at potentially, increasing the mobile to like an east and a west, for example, where we have more focus, because we have so many sites that keep coming up that require mobile security's attention. We're gonna kind of do an audit of the sites that we have, what still needs to be there, what needs to be added, and if there is a requirement, because we don't want our mobile patrols to get watered down because we have so many sites they have to get to, we might end up splitting to like an east and a west. These are just some ideas, like nothing's been put in place yet, but we're starting to have our meetings to get prepared for next summer.
I like that you're thinking of that.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your time here today, and thank you for being prepared and answering that question.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Collier?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask about the agreement with the region as far as reimbursement for some of our costs to deal with our unsheltered issues, especially at the plaza. We've had this discussion the first time when it came out, we were told, and I think my colleagues, let's see if we get nods, at the region, we were told that they would, even though security wasn't specifically mentioned, they would work with us on this. So I just wonder, has there been any progress as far as recouping our $500,000 cost last year in cleanup and security?
Ms. Cruciano's on here. Go ahead, Cass.
Thank you. Through the chair to the mayor. Yes, so the staff has not received to date a draft agreement or anything with the region. We have followed up at the staff level, and I will say that working with government relations, we are working on more formal ask, hopefully being sent by the end of the week. And Mr. Mayor will work closely with you on what is included in there, but it will include some updated statistics around things like costs of cleanups, security costs, increase in constituent inquiries, safety incidences in the downtown area, the library, town hall campus. So it is underway, but today we have no substantial update that we can share on the agreement.
Okay, so the region of Durham had an agreement in place with the city of Oshawa and reimbursed them $500,000. I understand that agreement has ended. And that was for security, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And they have an agreement with the town of Whitby for their 1635 Dundas facility, but we don't have one.
So through the chair, my understanding is the Oshawa agreement was a one-time funding sort of injection, I guess, and Whitby's is because of 1635. However, the other municipalities, and I don't believe, to my knowledge, that there is an agreement with any other municipality other than Whitby for 1635 right now, but that is part of the outreach that we're currently doing to the region to better understand where they stand with the other municipalities, specifically other than Whitby.
Well, I'd be quite happy with a one-time agreement like Oshawa had and get reimbursed for our $500,000 worth of costs. This is very honestly, and this isn't a question, this will just be a comment, a download to our residents, to our taxpayers from the region of Durham that's responsible for this service. We are hosting two, I'll call them shelters, that's not the right word, across the road. We do have some issues that go along with that. The region has come out with a policy And we're asking to be reimbursed for our costs, which we have measured and provided to them. And so far, we have not got that agreement. And I'm not talking a couple of weeks. We had this 3-4 months ago, maybe longer. The region approved this policy, and I made the same comments at regional council. So, Ms. Cristiano, please keep me up to speed on what's going on with this, and let me know if you need me to have some discussions at the region. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Lee, you said you would move this? Okay, if there's no other questions. We'll vote. Thank you. Now we're on to 4-7, and that was the roof on the MCC, and that was Councillor Bauer. Would you like to put your request to speak? There you go. Okay. We can't hear you.
Oh,
There
I'm
you
so
go.
sorry.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. Very simple and quick question. Confirming 2015, there was 45,000 square foot of roof that was replaced. This report mentions, I think, an additional 25,000 square foot of roof that's being replaced. I'm just confirming we're not replaced, like it's a different section of the roof, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, that's correct. The McLean Community Center was built in 2 phases. The second phase is primarily where the fitness facility is and represents this roof replacement, which is phase 2 of 2.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Quick and easy. Thanks, Chair.
Would you like to move it?
Sure, yes, please.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Bauer, and we'll vote. Thank you. And now it's 4-8. I have Councillor Henry and Councillor Dyes. So first, Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Because this project involves multiple properties that the municipality does not own, I have some questions. So, I'm understanding that around 32,000, just under 32,000 of the 2018 land development charges are being used to complete this project. Will that deplete that fund? Because it's a development charge fund that, does that even exist now with the new provincial guidelines? Well, is that going to deplete that fund? Can someone speak to that?
Through the chair, can I get some clarification? Sorry, Councillor Henry, what are you asking?
I was noticing in the report the amount that's being used for this project, and it says it comes from the 2018 land development charges are being used to complete this project. Did I not read that in the report? 336,300. Is that not in the report? Did I pull that from somewhere else?
Through the chair, are you referring to the capital detail sheet?
I believe so, and I was looking at the land development charges that are being used to complete the project. And I'm just, it said land development charges from 2018.
Through the chair, so our development charge reserve fund is our last bylaw, which was 2018. We are continuing to collect funds in that reserve. What's identified on the capital detail sheet, what is in there, what's been referenced is the 2024 values of 1.792 million. The total that's referenced on that capital detail sheet will come forward later on for the total cost of this entire project. What's being requested here, so there's land acquisition, but for this particular one, is this just design? This award was for the design of the project.
Yes, I understood it was for the design of the project, but I was referencing something that I saw in there. You know what, I'll take this offline and find the point and reference it with you in an email. My next question is the Indigenous consultation, and at what point will this take place during will it be in the design phase that the consultation will take place? And if so, at what point? How far away are we from the Indigenous consultation point?
Through the chair, at this point, at this point in time, we've just engaged the consultant to initiate and put together their work plan. Once the terms of reference have been put together and a schedule has been established, we will have our consultation, but typically we get to a point where we have about a 30% design complete so that we've got something to initiate the discussion. So I don't know specific timelines, but I know where along the continuum that all stakeholders would be engaged, including the Indigenous community.
Okay. The report's mentioning the relocation of the tracks, and I'm wondering what's the time frame on that and the cost associated with that, of the train tracks?
So at this point in time, we're just dealing with the design of the project itself. The timing is still going to be subject to a future council budget approval. Right now, and this is what you maybe have been referencing with the $31 million, which is the utility relocation, the land acquisition, and the construction, which includes the relocation of the tracks, would be at some point in time in the future. Again, will be a year and a half to get through the design process. Then whether we go right into construction, that would be an option, but it's way too early to determine a time frame or a year at this point in time for that.
And I guess that's going to be, that might be the answer for the next question, is the expropriation of the land. Because I'm looking at where we're looking, if we're running a straight line through in the diagram presented in the businesses that we could be expropriating from. And again, you know, there's a cost associated if there's an environmental cleanup to remove hazardous waste from the ground in some of those businesses and what that's going to look at like. Like the design is fairly relatively inexpensive in comparison to the overall project. And this is going to be a big amount of money on the taxpayers, correct? Where's the money coming from for this project?
As referenced in the detail sheet, the bulk of the money is being paid for through development charges. There is a small percentage that would be attributable through the development reserve, but there's a small benefit to existing that would be realized, but the majority of it is all paid through DCs.
It's all paid through DCs. So we're not going to have to go to the province, the federal government, or the region for any type of funding?
Right now, we've built and we've developed our DC background study contemplating that we would build Hunt Street. So the monies that we're collecting that are already in our DC background study are going towards the construction of this road, including land acquisition and utility relocation. So it's already been factored into the charge, right? So what every homeowner is paying, and whatever DC is paying for every home is contributing to the road infrastructure component of the DC charge.
And are we looking for any help from the region with regards to moving this project forward? Will we need their help for anything, for any approvals?
The biggest thing would be coordinating with the region in terms of the extension of the sanitary sewers. So there's a coordination that would happen with the region, but we would be dealing with the road-related costs.
And is there any way that with the correlation there could be refusal for the project through the region?
Again, that's not something that we would expect. The region does have it within their forecast. The discussions that we've had with the region are that they're actually wanting to move forward. This is their preferred alignment for sanitary sewer long-term. So I don't envision there being an issue in terms of dealing with the region on this.
I also don't think staff would know kind of what the region is going to do in the future anyway. Like anything can happen, right? So
100%,
yeah.
but we need approvals for certain things at a regional level, and if it's been flagged that the region is opposition to something, and staff happen to know this is, my only opportunity to kind of ask that question, if there's any flags on this file that we as a council should know about now.
Mayor Collier would like to jump in here with some answers. Is that okay with you,
I
Councillor?
appreciate that, yes.
Regional Councillor Dyes, if he goes ahead? Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, this is like I don't think anything I've talked more about in the last 6 years of being mayor than Hunt Street and using it to unlock our downtown. The reason why last year's budget I actually accelerated the design was to get everything done and ready in anticipation of getting this done. The region would be responsible for the sewer. If they said no, I guess we would have to cross that, but I don't know why they would. The sewer on Hunt Street was identified as a priority project in the regional budget in 2021. So it's already been identified as a priority project by the region. We've talked to them about moving that funding over to Doughty. We're talking about Doughty still, but that's a Band-Aid fix. The Hunt Street is the eventual long-term. So getting this done now kind of just makes sure everything is shovel-ready when and if the project goes ahead. There's still, of course, the land acquisition, the pole replacement, the utilities, the CN rail, spur realignment, all that stuff, but this is just getting the design done.
And Mayor Collier, have you seen any flags on this file that would lead you to believe that we're going to have any opposition from, be it CN Rail or the region?
Cost, because the price keeps going up.
And
This was originally, I think, a $20 million project. Now it's, and yes, I have been having discussions with our federal and provincial partners on cost sharing on this project. We're not
Okay.
there yet, but I'm working on it.
So I guess that's the question is, we will need money so as not to put this on the taxpayers' back.
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is already explained, and probably Ms. Valentin can confirm that most of this is funded through DC. So we've already collected the funds to do this project. That's what the funds are collected for. No? Yes?
Through the chair, I don't think we've collected all of it yet.
No, not
but
all of it,
yes,
but-
it's built into the calculation, as Mr. Meredith had said, so we will be collecting towards this project.
So Mr. Mayor, when you say you're already having some discussions with the federal and provincial government, is there a set amount we're looking for, or?
I have made, and Ms. McClarty can probably confirm this for me, or maybe Ms. Cruciano, at least 2, if not 3 presentations to Ministers Piccini, Ministers, who's the new Minister of Infrastructure?
Just say Minister.
Okay, several on this project. So yeah, and as well as our local MPP, Patrice Barnes.
And what's the dollar amount we're looking for? Do you have that?
That I don't remember.
Does someone over there have that answer?
I'm sure somebody can get that for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Curious also to know about the private properties that will be impacted. How many, do we know how many there are along the extension?
Through the chair to Councillor Dyes. Mr. Meredith did mention through this process, we'll have an idea through like what lands we may need to acquire. So we'll have to go through the process, through the design and see how the road design with the rail realignment, et cetera, because there could create some new parcels or break parcels apart. So we'll have a better idea through this process what that is. And I'm sure when it comes time, we'll be reporting back anyways to council on that.
Well, I appreciate that. And the reason I ask that is because this is an area of intensification, both in the old area and on Westney Road as well. This is going to be, I think, a great sort of new access to the GO train as well. So it'll be a busy area for, you know, cars and cyclists, I think, pedestrian buses, that kind of thing. So I'm wondering, and we've kind of had a discussion about planning communities, and with re-intensification, it's kind of piecemeal, and I'm wondering if this is an opportunity when we go through this process to also look at if there's a possibility of parkland that we can purchase in that area that could, you know, be for access for residents who are going to be in high rises on Westney and in the downtown area.
Through the chair to Councillor Dyes, That may be a further study down the road for this particular area, but through the Parks and Rec Master Plan and through our OP review and through the downtown studies and development, you know, getting cash in lieu of parkland, et cetera, but also through the secondary planning that we're going to do through for the MTSA and the policy structure there. We'll be looking for all those opportunities to acquire land or cash in lieu to purchase future lands as part of developments within areas that are going to be, you know, redeveloped or infill development. So we'll look for those opportunities as per our policies.
Thank you, I appreciate that. My other question too, I guess I'm looking at the design that that's on, it's page 172. And my only concern is, while we're going through this process of looking at what our needs are, and we may need to expropriate different lands, I'm looking at possible conflicts where you have bus stops with a cycling trail and a pedestrian trail side by side. And that's my only concern. And I think perhaps maybe to kind of alleviate some of that concern would be, or some of those issues that might arise, those conflicts, would be to move the cycling track on road. Because right now, and I know it's just a rendering, but I think it's something to consider now to do it right, given that that's going to be a busy street and it's going to offer a great opportunity for access to the GO. So just through this process, I'm hoping you can look at that. That's
Director
it.
Meredith?
That's my comments.
Yeah, just in response, as you referenced, there is both the sidewalk and a cycle track off-road, sort of on both sides of the street, that are extending in an east-west direction. So the cyclist or electric operated bikes and scooters and so forth would be separated from residents. There is the ability, and there would be the need for coordination, obviously, with Durham Transit to ensure there is no conflicts that would be identified through the design process. So I think as we go through the design, and as you can see, there is a physical separation between the cycle track and the sidewalks as well to make that distinction in both directions. But the consultation that would be required sort of will include, obviously, Durham Transit, as well as sort of engineering and active transportation as well, to ensure that there is the appropriate separation and integration of public transit to meet sort of the transit needs as well as the active transportation requirements needed to support the road extension.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Would you like to move this at the right time? Okay. Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In reference to Figure 1 on page 171, the map, which I always appreciate, will the smoothing out of Monarch onto Doughty Road be included in this design? Because it's right there, and any of us locals, you make the left on Hunt, and then you're going to make the quick right on Doughty. Or is that less of a thing, the fact that Hunt Street will be opening up?
Through the chair to Councillor Tyler Morin, are you talking about the jog there?
Yeah.
No, it's going to stay as is, from what I understand. There's not going to be any alterations to that configuration of Monarch, Hunt, and Doughty. That's still going to be
as is.
As is, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, this is moved by Regional Councillor Dyes, and we'll call the vote. Thank you. 4-9 is been pulled by Councillor Bauer and Regional Councillor Dye. Councillor Bauer, would you like to have a request to speak, please? There we go. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I noticed, thank you for the report, first of all. And I noticed that there's no mention of the installation or work for lights or stop signs or a crosswalk at Harwood and Clover Ridge. And I know that was a topic of a previous meeting and hopefully a budget item. So I know this is a different report and it only talks about the MUP. My question is, When the installation of the MUP happens, will consideration be given for any prep work that might need to be done for the installation at a later date of those crossing mechanisms?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, yes, we'll be putting in the conduits that would allow for the future capacity for that crosswalk to be extended in terms of the infrastructure that's required. So understanding what that may look like in the future, we would put the temporary sort of measures in place to allow for that future capital project.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I look forward to that item in the budget. That was my only question.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Dies.
Thank you. My question is about the right-hand turn lanes that they're considering removing from Clover Ridge, Garden Road, Dryer, and Clements. Was there consideration given to school times? Because there's both on Clover Ridge and Dryer are out-of-district schools. So that means when you're out of district, you generate a lot more transportation cars of parents picking children off at peak times. Was that taken into consideration?
When we looked at sort of the design for the multi-use trail, we did it in consultation with our internal operations group, but as well as transportation in planning, who looked at and conducted traffic counts at different times of day to ensure that removing the right-hand turn lanes would not impede or make the turning movements or traffic flow sort of any worse sort of along Harwood Avenue. So we did do an analysis, and based on the volumes and the counts that we generated, it was determined that it was appropriate to remove the right-hand turn lanes in favor of the multi-use path.
And are residents aware of these potential changes?
There'd be just our regular notifications that would go out, like our pre-construction notice, but there wasn't consultation as it related to the implementation of this design. This is a design exercise that looked at extending the multi-use trail, and really there's limited options in terms of how that design could take place.
Oh, thank you. And my only other concern is as the same as the other design for the extension of Westney is the possible conflicts with pedestrian cycling and bus stops. And currently we're seeing an increase in electric vehicles, and I think they're very popular, it's going to increase, and that could be problematic. So I'm hoping that that's also have been taken into consideration through this process.
One of the important elements of the design process was engaging Durham Transit. So there is some refinements and improvements that are needed to ensure that the location of the trail and the relocation or modifications to the transit stops are taken into account as well. So we definitely engage Durham Transit through the process.
Thank you.
I need a mover. Councillor Henry, would you like to move this? Okay. And if we can vote. Thank you. Next is 4.17. I have Councillor Bauer and Councillor Henry. Councillor Bauer, could you put your request to speak on? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just looking for my question. I guess it's more a general question of, I see the procedural bylaw. This gets, I guess, reviewed every year to make changes for the meeting schedule. And is there opportunity for more changes to this bylaw? Or how would that work? Or does it get reviewed?
Through you, Madam Chair. So my team will be bringing forward some changes to the procedure bylaw this fall for council to take a look at, basically looking at housekeeping and some best practices in neighboring municipalities and trends across the municipal sector.
Great. And when you bring that report forward, Ms. Grassi, there'll be opportunity for council to provide input or make amendments?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair. That's it for right now.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Just a quick question here. I didn't notice this last year, so I'm just going to ask. I'm noticing that when there's a Victoria Day, a Thanksgiving, a Family Day long weekend, we have whatever scheduled meeting, which is usually council or GGC, the immediate day afterwards. So you come back from a long weekend, a family time, and boom, you're right into a meeting, which means that chances are you had to spend some of that holiday season away from your family, reading 300 to 600 pages prior to the meeting. And I'm just wondering why it's not pushed to the following Monday instead of having it on the Tuesday of the short week. Just generalized question.
Through you, Madam Chair. I believe in the procedure bylaw, it does state that they will fall on the Tuesday following a holiday, mostly just to ensure consistency. So there's a lot of months where we wouldn't have the opportunity to have that extra week, and we would run into just continuous meetings for 6 or 7 weeks in a row. So it's been our practice to hold them on the Tuesdays to allow sort of a continual flow of meetings for council and the public.
Understood. Is there any leeway on that in what you're bringing forward? Because I'm noticing like the Family Day, instead of the 18th, it could be on the 24th. Victoria Day, instead of on the 20th, it could be the 26th. There's like a little bit of a pattern here where it could be what I'm seeing the following week. Is there any bit of leeway on that?
So through you, Madam Chair, currently we're following what the procedure bylaw outlines for the meeting schedule. So if we were to be looking at something like that, we'd be looking at a procedure bylaw amendment.
And that would be taking place for 2026?
I would recommend at this point to take place for the next year.
Okay, so I'm just going to leave that there and know my thought process, and we'll discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to move this? Sure. Okay, so we have a mover and I need open vote. Okay, thank you. And the last poll was 418, and it's Mayor Collier. Request to speak.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. And I saw this last Friday, 2 Fridays ago. I asked for approval on the last Friday allowed, and I had too many questions, so that's why it's here in front of us today. I am very concerned over this expenditure coming in, and I believe when I did the math, 65% over budget. And it's based on, and excuse me, I haven't given all 297 pages of this agenda as much attention I would like to because I was moving last week. But from what I recall from this, it is a result of a 19 or 21 assessment of our energy, and because we don't use this type of refrigerant anymore, recommended replacement. My question is, are these units still operational? And how long do we expect, if they are, for them to continue to be operational before we have issues and need to replace them?
From a building maintenance perspective, when we look at sort of these types of projects, we look at obviously the maintenance costs associated with them. In each of the last couple of years, the costs associated and the man hours associated with the repair and replacement, the repair of the air handling units, in our view, dictates that the units are reaching the end of their useful life and should be replaced. When we looked at it, I guess from a design standpoint, the design was initiated and awarded in 2023, and the Class D estimate was provided in the early part of 2024. Obviously, a budget had been established at that point in time. We've also looked at incorporating and anticipating the evolution into our building automation system transfer. So that's been built into this, so it avoids a future cost that we would incur when we replace our building automated system at a at a later date, in which we're just doing the design on at this point in time. So we've looked at the short-term need to replace it from a asset condition perspective and also plan for it from a building automation system moving forward. So in our mind, it's needed based on its condition, not age.
But are they working?
They're working. It doesn't mean that they don't require replacement in terms of what we would deem to be their condition and the amount of time and the estimated downtime that we're going to experience in the coming year.
Okay, well, I would like to see those numbers. I'm not willing to approve this today, being 65% over budget. So if you can provide those to me this week, I would like to see what the expenses have been on this, when they were installed, because I object to, if it had come in on budget, it would be a different conversation, but 65% over, we have a policy that speaks to that, and one of them is we don't do it. The second one, I believe, is we reduce the scope, and I don't remember what the third one is. Perhaps Ms. Valentin can tell me. But right now, from reading this, it sounded very much to me that through the energy audit, it was recommended, so we're doing it. And as long as they're working to me right now, and they've got a couple of years left, I think we can get better pricing at another time, because 65% over just isn't working in this budget.
I guess the only, comment that I would add is the third item is our ability to cancel other projects with the same funding source, which is what we recommended here. The Ajax Community Center, their air handling units were recommended. We've recommended canceling and rebudgeting for that to cover the over expenditure of this site. So that was the third point.
Yeah, I did read that, but I'm going to move that this be referred, Madam Chair. I would like to see those numbers before make a decision on this.
So what you're saying is that there, with the deferral of the ACC, that it offsets the cost for this?
The ACC was $420,000 as well. Our over budget is about $260,000, so it does cover the over budget expenditure.
And ACC is in better shape than MCC?
And we would also look to do it as part of a future ACC reno project as far as the bigger project goes.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Regional Councillor Lee.
Do you or your team foresee the costs possibly going down? Because from my municipal experience, that has never been the case. So I think costs always go up. So to the mayor's point, I understand the concern, but we are offsetting it, and I think it'll only get more expensive the longer we wait. Would you share that assessment, or do you think there is a possibility it can go down?
When I look at the bid documents, we had 9 bidders, so that tells me that it was competitively bid. So the prices range from $664, which this was, up to $895. So I think we've got a good competitive bid, and
Out of 9, this is the cheapest we got. Just want to make sure our council colleagues can hear that. Out of 9 bids, this was the cheapest we got. All right, thank you.
Okay, so is your deferral back on the table now, Mayor Collier? I think everyone's spoken that wants to
Then I
speak.
would like to move that this be referred to council on Monday, and so I can review those numbers this week, please. Thank you.
No, don't need a seconder. So we'll just call a vote. Councillor Bauer, it's a deferral, so I don't really think you can speak. Did you have, is your thing on for, oh, never mind. So that passes. Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. We have one presentation. We have one presentation left, and that is the Record Information Management System. And it's acting, what's your title again?
Deputy CAO, but
Right, Deputy CAO Cooper. Sorry about that. It was like, you're not acting. I don't really know what you're.
thank you, Chair. Jason McWilliams actually going to provide some opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm very happy and excited to see this report and presentation before committee today. Today concludes nearly a year of work by Legislative Services staff and town staff across the organization to document the current state of the town's records and information management practices and articulate a future vision for how we manage information and records critical to the range of business activities that we undertake. There are a couple of key drivers for this report. The first one I would highlight is just kind of an outdated RIM strategy. So it's been more than 10 years since the town undertook an effort to articulate kind of how we intend to manage information and records. And given significant change in technology and service expectations, I think we require a new North Star to guide our efforts in this space. We also know that the town has an increasingly mobile, hybrid, and remote workforce, and so we need to supply access to information when and where staff need it to complete their assigned tasks. Thirdly, we know that there's an increased digitization of municipal services. COVID saw the rapid digitization of our services, and that has really occurred quite haphazardly with a bit of a lack of a coherent strategy or plan to determine how we're going to manage that information. And then finally, I'd just highlight, we do have a number of new systems coming online or have recently deployed new systems. So Microsoft 365, CityWorks, Workday, all of these are systems that are critical to the services that we deliver to the community, and it's critical that we understand how this information is being managed. So this will result in a multi-year strategy to transform how we manage information and support improved service delivery for internal and external stakeholders, while also maximizing investments in technology that we've already procured and are currently being utilized by staff across the town. I'd like to thank staff across the organization who engaged and participated in this important initiative. And a special thank you to Angelica Dansell, our Records and Records and FOI coordinator, who has coordinated much of this work. The completion of this initiative on time and on budget really can be attributed to her dedication and professionalism. So at this time, I would call forward Ivy Yee, who's a senior consultant with MNP Digital, to share an overview of the key recommendations from this work.
Well, I don't think the mic's on either, so. There you go. I think you need to press a button again. There you go.
All right.
There
Now
you go,
hear me
there you go.
okay?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. And Jason and team, I know that we had to send over a note to see if we could take a quick break before we get into the presentation, if that's possible. The team, we have the project team dialing in from across the country as well, and they're just having some technical difficulties dialing in. So if that's a possibility, then if we can take a quick break.
Yep,
Perfect.
motion to recess. Regional
All
Councillor
right.
Lee. All right, we're back. Are we back? We're good. Okay. So have your colleagues managed to?
And proceed,
Okay,
and they can join as they're able.
perfect.
All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time today. Like I mentioned, we have some colleagues dialing in from across the country, so I can quickly introduce them. And I'm IVA, I'm a senior consultant with our digital consulting team at MNP, having worked closely with Nicole, Jason, and team throughout this RIM strategy engagement. And then on the call, as they're dialing in, we have Curtis Adair, who's our engagement partner and leads our work in records and information management. We have Kevin Celeste from the Yukon, who's a manager, and he also helps lead our work in this space. And Jeff Michaud, who is our technology expert and all things technology implementation related. So we'll keep it quick, short and sweet today. We'll spend some time giving you an overview of the work that went into this RIM strategy engagement, highlight some of the key opportunities that came out of this, and then give you a high-level overview of the multi-year roadmap that Jason had mentioned. So really, we were engaged to assess the town's current RIM program, what's in place, where there may be opportunities for enhancing the existing program. So as part of this, we conducted a current state review. And so we took a look at existing policies, framework, the governance that's in place for the current RIM program, so rules and responsibilities are in place. And then we also engaged key stakeholders from across the organization. So we engaged the business, IT, as well as RIM staff. So really placing a focus on understanding what the key challenges and opportunities are, what's working, what's not. And a big part of this too was taking a look at the technologies that are currently in place to support your operations, to understand where there may be opportunities for improvement. We also, as a part of this process, took a look at legislative requirements that the town is mandated by, as well as a scan of industry-leading practices. So what are similar organizations and other municipalities doing in the records and information management space, and assessing the town against what the industry is doing. And from there, we identified these key opportunities, which leads to some of these areas here that I'll highlight. So based on our current state review, we found that there is an established RIM program in place. The team with legislative services is doing a lot of great work, as evident through our stakeholder engagement. There was a lot of good feedback on the support that's being provided in terms of records and information management processes. And with that, though, we noted that there were some inconsistencies in records handling practices across the organization, and a limited oversight and monitoring of practices that are being implemented across the organization. And then a key part here is that there are some inefficiencies in the technologies that are being used and the technologies that are in place to support your operations. So based on this understanding, we've highlighted some key opportunities here, starting with disposing of over-retained records to ensure that you're in compliance with legislative and business requirements, and then also reducing the current reliance on paper records and moving to a more digital environment for records management. This in turn will help you with reducing use of physical storage space and also just help with ease of searchability of records as well. The second point here is around enhancing existing records management policies and procedures. So ensuring that there's clear, consistent understanding of requirements and guidance for how to handle organizational records. And also applying a risk-based approach, which is, a discussion that, based on our understanding, the team has been having over the past while here, is having or helping people understand the risks associated with non-compliance when it comes to records and information management. So as part of this engagement, we actually helped with updating existing policies and procedures to, first of all, make it so that it meets the specific needs of the town rather than using, the outdated and standard TOM RIMS system. and then also making sure that it's consolidated and clear and easy to understand. And then the third point here is around ensuring that there are processes in place to monitor your RIM program over time, to proactively identify and address risks, and then also formalize your training program for records management. So ensuring that there's processes in place to monitor for effectiveness and completion of RIM training. So with all of these opportunities in mind, one of our key or primary recommendations is around technology. And so, with the current records management system, which is Laserfiche, it is an outdated system. It's an end-of-life system that, there's limited vendor support, and it's going to continue going in that direction. And so one of our primary recommendations here is around implementing a modern records management system that's integrated or has the ability to integrate with your other key systems and applications to replace the existing legacy Laserfiche system. So the solution that we had highlighted through the strategy and discussion with the team and with the understanding of the solutions that you have in place is Microsoft SharePoint as the recommended solution to replace Laserfiche. So to highlight some of the key benefits of replacing the current system, reduce risks associated with data loss, as well as the inability to look up or search for records that staff may need, which relates to your ability to respond to FOI requests in a timely manner. Security and privacy is a big conversation across municipalities and across really today's world in general. So Microsoft and SharePoint offers enhanced security and privacy capabilities and controls to ensure that you are or you have the necessary controls in place to protect sensitive as well as personal information. So this includes, community members' information, staff information, as well as sensitive town information. And, this is at the forefront too with some of the privacy and security breaches that have occurred across municipalities in Ontario over the past few months. So security and privacy is definitely a key component of this. Reduced operating costs when it comes to, vendor management, costs of maintaining the existing legacy system, and then also cost of digitization efforts over time as well, just as a few examples. And then also from the staff's perspective, it'll offer enhanced user experience. So it will come with capabilities for, advanced searching and ability to easily locate records, as well as, increasing productivity just in general. And also a big one is the ability to automate some of these processes. So there are capabilities for, automating processes for retention, disposal, review, and approval of records before they're disposed of. So very much a lot more, advanced capabilities than what is currently in place. And then last but certainly not least, this is a direction that is aligned with what is recommended for the industry. And, based on our experience and our work in the public sector, it's the direction that municipalities and the public sector in general is moving towards. And it's common that, they've either already moved away from legacy systems and replaced it with a modern solution like Microsoft and SharePoint, or are in the process of doing this. So these are just some of the key recommendations that came out of the RIM strategy. And so you would have received the final or the detailed version of this roadmap here. But to give you a high-level overview, we also delivered as part of this engagement, this multi-year strategy in roadmap form. So to highlight some of the key points, in the short term, so first 6 months, it'll really be about preparing for program rollout ensuring that, there is a security framework in place so that once the solution is implemented, you have a consistent approach to how you're storing, protecting records, specifically sensitive records, and then also ensuring that you have a change management plan in place, right? So assessing the impact on the business, ensuring that financial and resourcing impacts of this implementation are accounted for, and this will include, acquiring any temporary resources that may be required to support implementation. And then we'll move into then implementing the technology. So getting the system set up, acquiring licensing and resourcing training for the technology side, data migration, and then we will move into training. So training and rollout of the program, ensuring that the updated policies and procedures are communicated to staff, that there's effective adoption of the new technology as it's being rolled out. And then this will kind of tie into the long term too. So maintaining and monitoring the RIM program over time and ensuring that, you're proactively identifying, addressing risks over time, and also providing that training and ensuring that your policies and procedures are reviewed on an ongoing basis to continually maintain compliance with regulatory requirements and industry practice. So, to close here, it is going to be a significant undertaking. With that being said, it's a very important undertaking to ensure that, you have the appropriate processes, governance, and technology, especially to maintain your operations, allow staff to focus on service delivery, and also ensuring that you're in compliance with legislative requirements and industry practice as well. So what similar organizations are doing and what's recommended for municipalities across Ontario and Canada. So I'll stop there and see if Nicole, Jason, team, you have anything to add, and otherwise we'll open it up to questions. And I don't know if the team is dialed in as well, but if not, we'll open it up. So yeah, over to you, Nicole, Jason.
No,
Thank you.
nothing to add from the staff side. So if there's any questions, we're happy to respond now.
Thank you. It seems very straightforward from my very limited experience. Complicated and straightforward at the same time. But is there any questions from council? Okay, well, you did a very good job. Good luck with all of that. I trust we have all of our records in good hands. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. And that is the end of our meeting. So I need a motion
Madam Chair,
to...
we just need a motion to
To
adopt
receive?
the motion. We need to approve the recommendation.
Oh, okay, my bad. I need a motion to adopt. Thank you, Regional Councillor Lee, and vote. My apologies. And now I need a motion to adjourn. Regional Councillor Tyler Morin, and vote. Thank you.